Ooh, it's so spooky out there. And plus, because today is not only Halloween Day, but also Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch has recently released today, so I thought it was worth mentioning for pointing things out. So, hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Duffy Duck here, and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Let's Play of Pac-Man World for the PlayStation/PS1 for short. So, last time we have managed to able to conclude those two levels in the Mansion World, despite the amount of trial and error I managed to able to come across into, most notably with, of course, the actual disappearing tombstones, as for all the gravestones for that matter. So hopefully, though, it won't give us any much more trouble until whenever we get to the last platforming level of the game, before we move on to the final boss in beyond that door over there. So, speaking of which, we're about to be jumping things into the forms of grave danger. So even then, as far as you no doubt by now, is the fact that today for this episode in particular, as I mentioned this before already, and I'll say that again, this is going to be a grand finale of this game's Let's Play by going through the very end of this conclusion of the forms of the actual Mansion World as well as the entire game. Although I wish I was able to show off some extra stuff, most notably with the gallery options as well as some outtakes and what have you, but sometimes though my Let's Plays departments didn't exactly go 100% completionist as far as I'm aware. Like, for instance, I'm always comfortable with doing 100% completion in the 3D Mario games essentially, as well as the some 2D Mario games from time to time, despite there are some missing parts like secrets and all that stuff. But also, same applies for the classic 2D Sonic action, and especially noticeable with, well, some occasional 3D games, like, for instance, the Sonic Lost World, and especially noticeable with, Shadow the Hedgehog, despite the fact that I've not even bothered to able to collect all of these, 5 golden keys, which, it might be seems a little bit tiresome for me, though. So, hopefully by that time, though, whenever we get to the forms of the future Let's Plays, most notably with, of course, Yoshi's Crafted World until next year, then I will show you we can able to actually deal with that particular 100% playthrough of that game until in that particular year. Along the same lines as when Warrior Lands, the Shake Dimension will eventually happen at some point, but then again, it's a little bit too early to able to actually decide which of one of those games I was going to able to do some Let's Plays of. Because after I'm completely done with this, which is usually today, I think I might actually take a break on the several other YouTube videos, because for the most part, I basically just managed to get conquered by the forms of the actual YouTube clips and all that stuff. And excuse me, stupid fancy skeleton fancy dress on, or the actual suit on for that matter. You just managed to finish your flamethrower attack, and then you decide to maybe get killed, or in this case get hit rather, assuming if the flamethrower is still present. So that's pretty unfair from my offset. So anyway, and now as you can see, we're actually going to be introducing to ourselves those thunder clouds. And also, I think we might actually jump onto the actual clouds themselves, even though it's a little bit too high at the moment, but whenever we get to the forms of certain pavements or anything like that, chances are we might actually able to actually just to step onto that. What the? Oh, I was in the back part of the staircase. Okay, that was definitely my fault right there. But hopefully by that time we'll able to actually success for that. So it's just that again, sometimes the depth of this game is actually got a little bit wonky at times. Well, nowhere near as bad as the actual other 3D games that has like depth perception sometimes. Like, for instance, there is the fan-made game called Paper Mario 3D Land, which is a very cool concept, by the way. I haven't really played it yet though, but I've seen loads of playthroughs of that game, and one of them has some complaints about the depth issue, which is specifically you need to judge the distance on the actual 3D plane with a paper aesthetic or something like that. Or maybe I'll get confused by that. So anyway though, because yeah, today's day is of course the 31st of October, in this case the final day of October today, and also as I mentioned earlier that today is the Halloween day. In addition, with the Halloween day was already happened, which it could be a good thing we can able to actually finish up with this Let's Play in time, the Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch has recently released today for the Nintendo Switch, and when I've played it, I actually really enjoyed it. Even though it might take a while to get used to with the new mechanics and all that stuff, especially noticeable because this is on a new hardware and stuff like that, as opposed to, you know, we just had 2 Luigi's Mansion games on the 3DS for some odd reason, because we already have one on the Nintendo GameCube, but, either way, it's really odd able to actually, like, although they did release the sequel on the 3DS though, just to make it a little bit obvious, but it doesn't make that much sense to me when it usually releases on the 3DS as a remake, which everyone's expecting for the Switch remake, but unfortunately things will have to happen. But luckily though, we got Luigi's Mansion 3 nonetheless, so once again, it is so hard to judge the distance sometimes. Oh, that was totally reckless, I'm telling you. But luckily though, we still got a couple of extra lives though, whenever we get to the very end of this game though. But hopefully whenever we get to Pac-Man World 2, even though despite the fact that Pac-Man World 2 doesn't give you that much opportunity, so you can able to actually rank up your, the insane amount of extra lives for that matter. But even then though, it's just a little bit of a convenience that works. So, aside from all that stuff, yeah, there's also new information about the forms of Pokemon Sword and Shield on the Nintendo Switch. And they did say about the fact that previously, for about a few days ago, they did say about the fact that with the actual file size, whenever you're trying to digital download that game, basically they did say about the fact that it's going to take about 10 gigabytes at minimum if you're trying to like download the game. It doesn't matter if it's on Sword version or the Shield version for that matter. But apparently though, during recently, it was actually decreased into, well, let's just say 9 gigabytes instead of 10, which, this might be a little bit worrisome for most other fans out there, for the Pokemon fans. Well, I'm still not a huge Pokemon fanatic when it comes to the main series per se, just because, well, I usually play some of it though, but it's just that those main games, it's not my cup of tea or anything like that, so that's probably for my taste. But anyway, aside from that though, because even then, we were expecting if Pokemon Sword and Shield was going to be the biggest game in the series, which it might still will be, but unfortunately for the forms of the Pokédex system, it just seems a little bit far too lacking compared to the forms of how it does it on the previous games for sure, which I have no idea why I just managed to able to do that decision back in, you know, in E3 discussions and all that stuff. Now, as you can see on the distance over there, we actually come across into the final Pac-Man friends. In this case, Pac-Man's true lovebird, which appears to be Miss Pac-Man. And it's a good thing we got the key from the likes of, Koopa, you know, creepy, Cato. I can't remember what the actual, the level's called now. It's, creepy Catacombs, which is basically, it's like a gravestone kind of, I can't remember what I can describe about this specific stuff though, because I know it's been about a whole month since I actually last touched upon this game because of, you know, just managed to able to focusing on certain Let's Plays for that matter, including the forms of until at some point in the future, we can able to actually focusing on other Let's Plays here and there too. Such as like, for instance, with, you know, the new game, which we might actually do a Let's Play of. Well, it's not going to be necessarily Luigi's Mansion 3 just yet, though, because, well, we're still originally trying to plan the Luigi's Mansion 2 Let's Play for that matter, but unfortunately, though, because of my phone storage has a lot of issues for that time, and plus, I found it's really damn difficult to able to actually get our hands on the 3DS capturing device, which I wish I was trying to get that, specifically for this year's Christmas and stuff like that, but, unfortunately though, the pricing on that particular capture card is disgustingly expensive, like, roughly the same price as, I would say the Switch, or the Nintendo Switch for that matter. I mean, sure, that might be the case though, regrettably, so, as you can see, I did manage to fail right there, and this means I'll get all the way back to that previous checkpoint was, so that's a little bit redundant, especially noticeable how the fact that, well, you know, you get the idea for that point. So, if you're probably wondering why the door is still there with the actual pair for that matter, well, we need to go underneath here into that little cave section for one not, and then basically we need to avoid a lot of hazards, including flamethrowers, skeleton enemies, and all the other stuff. There's so much crap to avoid. Especially that you need to be dead on with the actual timing for that matter, because if you screw up at least one timing or not, then basically you have to go all the way back to where the checkpoint is. Unless if you're really curious, if you really want to get the actual metal ball power-up for that matter. But, unfortunately though, there won't be anything around here, so... Anyways, let's take down these little skeletons really quickly, so just in case we can able to actually kick those guys' butts. And, if you think that we're actually on a dead end somehow, well, this might be a little bit of a, kind of a, some sort of like a camera working going on. If you see that little gravestone over there, this is where we can able to actually access to the actual switch. And in here, we can able to see there's a little bit of a grassy segment, which appears to be shaped like a skull. Which, because, you know, it's usually heavily influenced by the actual Halloween event. So, yeah, you probably get the idea. So even then, as far as today, as far as I'm aware though, well, then again, there's not much else I can really just try to speak of, apart from those, 2 things I've already mentioned, or actually 3 things for that matter. I've already mentioned this before, but, we're not going to go through all that again, because even then, it might be a little bit repetitive to able to discuss upon that point. But anyways, let's regenerate our health quickly, so just in case we can able to eat some more ghosts for that matter, as well as grabbing a cherry, because I think grabbing a cherry will be very important, because you notice there's actually a pear in the distance over there. And thankfully though, unlike in any other fruits on the maze segment, basically it does not disappear at all, so it's just there for the whole time. And in here, we can able to actually jump from platform to platform by going for those, actually, I just made a mistake right there. These are coffins, not the actual gravestones for that matter. Oops. I know it's been such a long while since I actually watched Halloween stuff, but then again, it's a little bit of a convenience, that is, so... Okay, let's go ahead and just jump from platform to platform, just make sure we don't get hit, so... Okay, there. Nope. Okay, fine. There we go. No! Damn it! This means I have to go all the way back. Oh, that's just brilliant. That's just brilliant. But luckily though, I can still manage to save my items though. Unlike in Pac-Man World 2, that I will able to have to re-grab those items again. So, yeah, you probably get the idea about the actual completionist when it comes to doing Let's Plays of the Pac-Man World Trilogy in mind. Because we were expecting we can able to do the 100% for each of those games, but it might be a little bit time consuming for that matter for me though, especially on the Ruins world, because, you know, unless the only good thing about it is the fact that we don't have to mainly focusing on Anubis Rex again, because, well, that boss is like such a controversy when it comes to difficulty spike. But anyways though, here's the forms of the final galaxy in the game, and also, this is the final time we're going to be seeing the actual maze gameplay style. And because of that though, unlike in any other mazes for that matter, we come across into a lot of hazard traps and stuff like that. This particular maze-like environment, as you can see right there, there are no hazards this time around. So it's just a matter of like, just a very simple maze design. So even then, it makes it a little bit more easier at some form or another, and plus you're able to actually collect yourselves 106 of those little pack dots, if you couldn't tell. So, yeah, there's not much else I can really just try to make a compliment for myself at this point, because even then, I'm quite surprised that we actually now finally managed to able to actually retain the actual complete Let's Play of this game right now, ever since during the forms of 2015, which never worked out, and 2017, same thing, and now in 2019, everything else has worked out. So even then, I'm very, very happy of how the fact that we didn't hold up a single massive delay for the sake of the forms of the continuation Let's Play of this game. So even then, I really don't know about Pac-Man World 2 though, but then again, we have to wait and find out until whenever we get to 2020 and stuff, so... Anyway, so we managed to complete one of the final mazes. Well, I was expecting if I was going to go for other mazes for that matter though, but unfortunately though, due to my skill lackingness or anything like that. So, let's go and open up the cage and free Miss Pac-Man. Smooch, kiss, smooch, darling, you are my hero. Which is probably true for that regard. We have to stop Toc-Man. I will meet you at his party. Yeah, because you're expecting if you were able to say, like, if I had a power pellet then, well, basically you don't have one. So, and at the end of the level, you get yourselves a freebie extra life if you manage to open up this box, and I somehow fell off. into the actual end of a level? Well, good thing you don't die right there, so even then, that's the only positive note. And also, this is going to be the final time we're going to be seeing these bonus areas from now on, because, well, we are basically end of the game, folks. Because even then, aside from, like, giving me some occasional extra lives, some extra goodies, and all that stuff, well, unfortunately for me, though, well, the only thing I actually realized about something is that in order to get 100% in this bonus stage here, not only do you able to collect every single fruit for that matter, as well as some other items and stuff like that, you need to able to land on the nice flat surface of the platform until you're able to actually fall off and die. So, one thing to keep that in mind, because even then though, I always thought to myself about I was missing something, but nope. Apparently, in order to actually 100% for that particular bonus area, you have to basically just manage to land on this not so much disappearing coffins and stuff. So, just want to keep that in mind, and yeah, just want to point things out. But unfortunately, I keep on failing for that bonus stage so easily because of, you know, coffins disappear like fast. Darling, behind that big door is Toc-Man. We will be here to help you when you need us most. And yeah, as I mentioned this before, you need to save all 6 friends, because if you miss one of them, then the door will not open. So, and since we actually rescue all of our friends, this means the door is now usually open. So here we go, onto the final boss in Pac-Man World for the PlayStation. Here I go, Toc-Man.
And now, here's the guy you've all been waiting for. Let's hear it for Pac-Man!
Look, here I am. Love me. Don't run. How about a hug? You've interfered with my plans for the last time, Pac-Man.
Alright, so here we go with the final boss in Pac-Man World, which appears to be Toc-Man himself, in Toc-Man's Lair. Now, this guy has, like, multiple phases. Like, for instance, in his first phase is that we need to use, you know, with these pack darts that we've already on about, ever since during the very beginning, that sometimes we need to occasionally use that for certain enemies. In during the forms of the factory world, for example, when you come across into those, chemist enemies, as far as I'm aware, and basically we do need to utilize the pack darts in order to actually kill them. In his first phase in this final boss is that, well, for Toc-Man anyway though, after when he decides to do exactly the similar movesets as you normally do, like for instance trying to throw these pack darts as a projectile, and then to simply manage to able to create an explosive effect. There's no way you can able to actually grab those pack darts from here. Now after that though, it's your chance to able to actually get, hopefully God forbid, trying to able to hit him. Although, luckily for me, especially noticeable if you actually get really close to him, you can able to actually get yourselves a good amount of damage. And yes, just like the forms of Chrome Keeper, it does have its health bar. So even then, well, it's only gets to likely on the halfway point, or in this case almost towards the end, basically it changes phases. So I think there are about 3 phases in total in this entire boss, but even then, for the most part, most people seem to think that this is easy as one of the hardest boss fights in the game, alongside with the forms of Anubis Rex. But I will say is that this boss wasn't that all that challenging to me though. I have no idea why. I think it's probably because I pretty much know about the game, or especially noticeable because of the fact that after the events of that controversy, which is of course Anubis Rex from World 2, or in this case for the likes of the Ruins world. But even then, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But anyways, once that phase has been done, Toc-Man will able to absorb himself or electrified, or even especially dragged himself into the middle part of the actual arena. And then basically it's your chance to able to damage on its head, so that way it counts as a weak point. And after that though, we move on to the second phase, where basically we need to ground pound or butt bounce in these every single switches. And every time you do that, well, you would do the same thing, and whoa, 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 whoa! Easy there, Toc-Man, easy there. And yeah, just like the forms of Chrome Keeper, there are no checkpoints. So even then, if you die at least 1 point, well, you have to go all the way back to the very beginning of phase 1. So, even though it doesn't bother me that much though, but some players might actually get thrown off a bit. But either way though, it's not that challenging in my opinion. So even then, the only time it's super annoying is the fact that every time when he's just trying to do a butt bounce technique, is that sometimes you'll easily get flattened and you get stunned at the same time. But regardless of anything else though, the only positive note about this boss fight is that then again, it requires you to able to find every single of your Pac-Man's friends, and then every time you get hit, as you can see, we're almost nearly towards the end of that lower health of ours. And basically, if we manage to get hit multiple times, then, well, obviously if you couldn't tell already, this will actually happen. As you can see, one of your Pac-Man's friends, specifically the dog, especially noticeable with Pac-Man Jr., Miss Pac-Man, Professor Pac-Man, and Baby Pac-Man, and even, I would say Dick Dog character, which is, Pokia, which I think is actually a character from Dick Dog, where basically he'll try to help you out throughout the majority of the battle, which I do like, because even then, it just makes the entire fight a little bit more of a not much of a challenge at all. Well, at least most of the time for most players. So, anyways though, so let's go ahead and ground pound all these butt bounce. Whoa, that was really close. I almost fell off to the edge then. But anyway though, I don't think there's any power-ups we can able to use, aside from, just the actual power pellet as the projectile of any sorts. But either way though, we've now actually got past for this part. Well, for the most part though, but it's just that you have to be very careful with the actual butt bounce, because if you're walking on the floor when you're trying to able to actually let Toc-Man do these similar movesets, like for instance the butt bounce, you actually create a little bit of a shockwave attack syndrome, which basically, if you're not paying attention to that, well, basically you take a hit. So, the vice versa though, really though, for the most part of this entire battle. But then again, it's not that much of a challenge if you go further away from Toc-Man, but either way, that's as far as we can able to think of. So I think this will be the last time we need to do this. So because of that though, after we're done with that part, well, we can pretty much move on to the final phase of this entire final boss. So, seriously, it's not that difficult or anything like that, unlike Anubis Rex difficulty spike. But anyway though, so here we go on to the third and final phase. I think some people seem to say this is by far the most difficult phase in the game, or in this case for this entire boss fight, because, well, assuming if he stops doing this butt bounce or anything like that, I think the best strategy for this is to stay away from him. That way, it'll create a rev roll, which basically, I recommend you able to actually just stay away from him as possible as soon as he does this. Stand onto the middle, and then as soon as he goes all the way around, he will get dizzy for a few seconds. Then that way, you can able to rev roll at him, back at him. So, that's the only advice I can think of. Whoa, Jesus Christ, man. I almost get fluked off for a moment, but even then, if I manage to get fluked off from almost at the very edge of the arena, then again, I have to go all the way back to the beginning of the first segment of the actual final boss to begin with, so... Then again, it's not too hard or difficult or anything like that, but it's just that you need to keep on your toes and all that stuff, so... And sometimes I easily get flattened right there, so thank you, Miss Pac-Man, for regenerating my health, so... I think that's every single one of Pac-Man's friends I can think of, because, well, basically we just keep on getting hit multiple times, because I swear to God, I think the only time, as you can see on this footage, the only thing I'm constantly doing is that I let myself go near the Toc-Man. I think that's what the trick itself does not work half the time, so I think you should probably stay away from him first. So, yeah, that's probably the only strategy I can think of, so... But then again, I think the dangerous part about the rev roll section in this fight is that if you go nearly touch the forms of the rev roll attack, well, it'll fluke you off and you have to go all the way back. So with that said, here's the last hit point, and let's watch the ending in Pac-Man World.
Unfair! You ruined everything! Nobody loves a ghost!
I'm not gonna lie, that ending is really funny. It's that, well, obviously when this particular grey ghost, and yeah, as you can see I got 86% complete, so... Then again, I wish I can show off some extras, but sadly that's not the case. So, yeah, with that ending, where basically this particular ghost, which I think it has his name, basically it's like Orson, his name, and basically he just got eaten by Pac-Man, where he's like saying like, nobody likes the ghosts, and basically Pac-Man just managed to got himself the actual power pellet on the actual backside, and then basically he just ate it, and then somehow ate the ghost somehow. So yeah, it's pretty satisfying for that ending right there. So yeah, that's how Toc-Man was actually got, the actual robotic has been destroyed and all that stuff. And it turns out there was a ghost inside, which apparently was actually known as Orson, as I said before. But until whenever we get to Pac-Man World 3, he will eventually come back. So even then, hopefully we're able to see him again though at some point in the future. So even then, let's just show off some of the staff credits and all that stuff. It's just basically static images from the likes of the full motion video cutscenes and all that stuff. The intro, the actual final boss ending, and especially the ending itself. So yeah, let's give my final thoughts of Pac-Man World for the PlayStation. I actually do really enjoy this game on the actual likely for the future years and beyond. I mean, at first I was a little bit skeptical at first, but the more I play it on the actual PlayStation console, well, not on my PS2, because sometimes my PS2 is always having struggles with play my PlayStation stuff. But anyway, the positives about this game, the actual soundtrack itself is actually really magnificent at the same time. I can listen to far out music every day, as well as the forms of Baconia Beach, as well as Corsoria Lair, as far as I'm aware, from the actual second stage on the Pirate World. And the visuals do look very good, especially this is on the PlayStation console. Now I will say, this game is a hell of a lot more better than the forms of the Game Boy Advance counterparts, because the problem with the Game Boy Advance version, well, it's basically lack of everything in the Game Boy Advance version. But on the PlayStation though, it's really good. I would say it's not my favorite Pac-Man world in the entire trilogy, that still belongs to the forms of Pac-Man World 2. But as far as Pac-Man World 3 goes, well, we'll talk about more on that in the future. So even then, another positive note is the fact that the actual level themes is actually quite inspired by the forms of the actual obstacles you actually come across. Like, I think my favorite world in the game so far, it will probably have to be, let's just say, the space world, despite the King Galaxian boss fight as far as I'm aware. Let's just get into the forms of the actual story itself. Like, I've already mentioned about the story briefly, but I think it's very simple and it's self-explanatory for the most part. And the gameplay is pretty fun. I do enjoy it. The controls might take a while to get used to though, but that's just how I think it is. So the only negative things I can think of is that there's both boss fights, Anubis Rex and sometimes King Galaxian sometimes, always having a hard time with those boss fights. So yeah, that concludes our Let's Play of Pac-Man World. So this is me, Duffy Duck here. And join us next time for the Pac-Man World trilogy of games. Next up on the list is Pac-Man World 2. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. So see you